Hello, I'm Doug Benedict, and welcome to the Butler Esports interview series, where we're interviewing sports leaders, owners, and industry experts in the evolving world of esports. Today's interview is with Matt McIntyre. Matt is a Butler alum where he studied marketing and media arts. Matt has well-versed background in marketing and business development. He's held roles as marketing manager at Moby Wireless Management, founded the marketing firm 6100, and also co-founded 1150 Coding Academy. Co-founded a nationwide nonprofit, Brackets for Good. He is now the head of Indianapolis-based Challonge, who is recently acquired by Logitech. Thanks for joining us.
Of course. Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it.
So how'd you all get started? Your journey from Butler to now, I guess.
Yeah, in fact, just going back to the Butler tie-in, I think, first of all, I've always played games, my entire life. And I think my first coordinated tournament at Butler, aside from playing original Halo on the Xbox over the LAN in Ross Hall, was probably we lugged a bunch of CRTVs into I forget exactly the room. It was in Gallahue, and we had like a Halo tournament, off 10 different CRT TVs inside that thing. And it was absolutely amazing. And then we ended up doing it as part of student government too. And so maybe that was the initial kind of nudge towards it. But after Butler, pursuing, sort of marketing roles and business development roles, and I've always been close to technology and software. And really what aligned me directly with Challonge was that the first part of my background you mentioned at Moby Wireless Management. At that time, I was there, and working there at that company with the original founder and creator of Challonge. So David Cornelius is his name. And he originally built the platform to solve the issue of hosting a company-wide ping pong tournament. No one wanted to sit around a ping pong table all day and go find somebody to play their next match and go make them report their score instead of empowering them to do the same. So he built this software solution. And at that time, it was really the culmination of StarCraft 2's sort of global competition excitement and Twitch at the same time. And so Challenge has always ridden this esports wave since there. And I was along for it. So David and I were great friends, and part of our journeys, even though we separated, both left Moby to do different things, we came back around this idea of Brackets for Good. And that was this nationwide, as you mentioned, nonprofit that raised money for other nonprofits through competitive fundraising. So imagine a tournament bracket. Nonprofits would compete against one another and then advance to the bracket, raising more money. And we used Challonge as the back end for that. So that was the software powering it the whole time. And then David and I stayed in close contact, and Challonge was looking to expand and grow. And so I joined the team formally. And then, as you mentioned, we sort of moved into this new ownership structure with Logitech, and that's all been great and good. So anyway, long story short, how did I start professionally? Doing lots of different things, right? And kind of finding out what was important to me and where I landed. And fortunately, I'm in a place that I love to be, which is around gaming and esports.
Absolutely. So in all of that, are there some highlights? The money you raised, the way Challenge has weaved itself into all of your activities?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, if anything, I think the highlight is just being around great people, right? And then you get these great opportunities. And so, yes, certain highlights are raising a ton of money for nonprofits and awareness for nonprofits. That was exciting. And then building this competitive engine that otherwise didn't exist, and then leveraging technology to go and do that. So today, the biggest highlights are, Challenge operates over 115,000 on average tournaments per month globally. And so that's, everything from your grassroots friends in the basement tournament to, your majors that have also used Challenge currently and in the past and in the future. And so it's, I think the biggest highlight is just figuring out how worldly gaming truly is, and how just it impacts so many different people.
Absolutely. So in a nutshell, what is Challenge, and what's the vision, moving forward?
Yeah, so Challenge, it's a tournament management platform. So, and in fact, that kind of branches out even further now that we've added racing. There's racing formats. So competition management is really the bucket we play in. And that's just it. It's, if you need a hub to host your competitions, whether you're, an esports team or your friends, you're a group of friends, you're you're a community on Discord, and you sort of need that hub and statistic tracking. That's where Challonge fits right in, and that's true for. We've seen all different cases being used, but that's the primary position we sit in.
How long has it been around, if you can, off the top of your head?
Yeah, over a decade. So Challonge is one of the tried and true, and part of it is our simplicity and ease of use. But it's a tried and true competition management platform that's been around since 2009 was its original founding date. And I've seen a lot of, other platforms come and go and be a part of this, and we still remain true to kind of that mantra of simplicity. And I think that's truly what keeps us going and exciting to a lot of people.
Yeah, and on that note,
and then real quick, you mentioned the vision. So Challonge really believes in its extensibility. So a lot of people will outgrow the core platform or need more features sort of personalized to their usage. And that's where our software tools come into play. So we are a platform empowering organizers, and through our API and other tools and integrations, Challonge becomes very extensible, very fast. And there's a lot of exciting stuff on the horizon.
So you mentioned the longevity, right, and how others have come and gone. Kind of, how does Logitech in that acquisition project or process play into this? Still around kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's been fantastic. So being a part of Logitech is really a dream come true. They bring not only the brand horsepower of everybody can probably point to a Logitech device on their desk pretty easily, but they also bring a lot of expertise around navigating some of these, how software fits into gaming and how somebody's journey from never playing before can end up, with the greatest gear, the greatest sponsorship, or the greatest sort of path to pro. And I think that's what Logitech believes in. Regardless of where you are, the idea of keeping connections through play is what we want to do. We want to keep people playing, and that's where Challonge fits right in.
Yeah. So your responsibilities about you, what does your day-to-day look like? What are you doing with the company?
Yeah, a lot. So the interesting thing about Challonge is our team's pretty spread out. So there's two of us here in Indianapolis, and then we kind of roll through Logitech operations in Las Vegas, where the rest of the Logitech Esports Services group is. Shout out to Beyond Entertainment as part of that group with us. And then the rest of our kind of software development and some customer support team is in Manila in the Philippines. And we've had this team as part of us since 2015 or 16. So they've been around for a while, and this is just our extended operations there, because prior to Logitech's acquisition of Challonge was part of Split Media Labs, and they're home based in the Philippines. So we had a chance to build out a great team there, and I've been there once and hope to go back once COVID dies down, but fantastic group. And so my responsibilities are keeping everybody organized, growing the business, and making sure that people love to organize their competitions on Challonge.
And you mentioned it, so I have to ask, how has COVID-19 affected operations? I feel like it's different from everyone, and especially in the esports realm. So how has it affected you?
Yes, substantially, right? I mean, every business is adapting to it, and we're not meeting in person, right? We're all work from home situation, and for the foreseeable future, fortunately, gaming is largely done virtually, and in fact, almost preferred, right? It's your setup, it's your house, it's your chair, it's your mouse, right? So that's certainly sometimes a benefit on our side, but the reality is we miss each other, we miss collaborating, we miss working together, we miss in-person tournaments. So hopefully we'll get back to that stuff soon, but for now, the adaptability of gamers and the industry has really been an okay thing, right? It's not a great thing. It's something that's we're all adapting to.
Yeah. So getting into this, because it seems that every person I talk to, they didn't go to school for esports, right? Getting into the whole backside of this, esports realm for you, were you given any advice? Did anyone say anything to you? Is there something that sticks out in your mind
about my path into esports? Yeah.
Yeah, getting involved,
No, other than you got to force yourself in, right? You got to really create something that's exciting, and I think there'll always be positions and roles for people to supplement or support an activity that's happening, and it takes an innovator to kind of build something new. and point people towards a direction that's either improving upon or adding, solving a problem or adding a ton of joy to the space. And I think that's where people should focus. And if you insert yourself early, that's your opportunity to sort of understand the industry from different perspectives, right? It's fun to sit and play. It's fun to win. There's a whole side of this business that's not just operating an event, that is the business development, the sponsorship, the value, where the exchanges are from a dollar perspective. So try and look at the esports industry a bit more holistically than gaming, right? And that's the output, that's the product, but how do you get there? And there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle.
So this is a type of interview I guess we haven't done when I'm speaking about like your company. So
yeah.
This may be a curveball question, who knows? But when talking about like revenue for a company like your own, where do you see your greatest opportunities being? Where, what do you look at, I guess, is essentially my question.
Yeah, everybody's looking at, revenue and top line and bottom line. And, we get big stories about esports industry and how big these prize pools are. And those are well-crafted, activations, usually in game, right? If you're buying a skin or you're buying a pack, you're contributing to some kind of worldly prize pool. But everybody's looking for revenue and trying to figure out how to maximize not just the bottom line, because that's sort of what you need to continue operating these great things. But how do you maximize the player experience, the organizer's experience, the team's experience, right? As an organization, how do they succeed? And there's a lot of disparity, right? I mean, there's various leagues, there's various platforms to stream on, right? There's not a lot of consistency. And so looking for that, I think, will certainly help revenue along a lot of people overall. But it is a journey that a lot of people are still on, right? To figure out how to do it and do it correctly.
Yeah. So what are for your service, what are like, I guess, the most popular titles? I assume from what you said earlier that there are still like, maybe not now, but traditional sports or in-person stuff uses your platform and your software. But like, what's your driver, I guess, the big one?
Sure, we get them all. I think right now the top of the games list is Mobile Legends, actually. So it's a platform that we know when people are creating a tournament, they're selecting a game title, and that game title is how we know what game they're playing, of course. And that's one of the popular. But we get some fun stuff on there too. We get darts, we get billiards, we get I've seen European handball. We've seen it all. But specifically in esports, Mobile Legends takes a cake. Smash is certainly on there, as well as your Valorants, your Counter Strikes, your League. I mean, all that stuff. Rocket League, of course, too. All those sort of always bubble to the top, and that makes a lot of sense. But I think the difference or disparity in the size and scale of those tournaments is what's fascinating too. Again, it could be your basement game and all the way to your major, and that's what's fun to see on the platform too.
Yeah. So you talked about the extensiveness, and I guess that kind of goes into my next question of like, what makes someone like me or an organization want to come to your software and use it to, what makes a difference, if you can expand on that, I guess.
Yeah, cool. And I think what we've found is that operating a competition, it takes a lot, right? It's extensive. It's a personal extension of you, the organizer, right? And so we want to make it as rewarding for you as possible. And when we think about rewarding to the organizer and the player, what does that mean? And usually it means, as an organizer, you're either rewarded in terms of like proliferating the game you love, or organizing a small community around that, or socializing, or earning money. And what does that all look like? So Challonge has, over the last probably year, released a feature called Communities. And Communities on Challonge is that hub of the people you want to be playing with. So whether it's whether it's Butler Esports and they're saying, hey, I want to host, we're going to put all our internal tournaments here, we're going to run our scouting tournaments, whatever it may be, we're going to do that all here, and it's going to be within our community. Or it's something as big as the Reddit Street Fighter group. That group on Reddit runs a Challonge community and hosts tournaments across the country, both East and West, all through our platform. And they communicate and they manage it elsewhere, but we're the hub for those competitions. And so we've really leaned in hard on communities and believe that's that's what makes competing fun, right? Knowing who you're playing with, continually playing against them, trying to beat them, and having a good time doing it.
Yeah. So do you do any work with developers of the game specifically, or are you just kind of like, disconnected from that, doing your own thing?
Yeah, a few things, exciting stuff there that I can't talk about yet, Doug. So,
No,
you know,
fair, fair.
little teaser, but excitement. But yeah, I mean, certainly you've got to. It's interesting when you think about esports versus traditional, right? No one owns basketball, right? So you can get out there and you play. It's the same sport for everybody, but certainly when everything changes in a title, you want to be close and understand that and how it impacts sort of competitive play and where that goes and how you make it again easier and more rewarding to the organizers and participants. That's always what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And, going back to the beginning, talking about your philanthropic efforts maybe prior to your current role, what are kind of like the philanthropic efforts going on now with Challonge?
Yeah. Geez, Doug, you putting me on the spot here because it's just one more thing I cannot yet tell you about. But we got some good stuff in the works. So we've looked really hard at the gaming community and trying to figure out what is underserved and how can Challenge help, really amplify that or create opportunities for those that otherwise may not have them. And we are actively pursuing that. And that's part of Logitech's initiative as well, and a culture we're happy to be a part of and help amplify.
Yeah. So then maybe this question you can't answer either, but I'm going to ask it anyways.
I'll try and get one in.
So maybe not the plan, right? But how do you continue to grow? How do you continue to organize, take up, to use the business term, a bigger market share, I suppose?
Yeah, that's great. I think certainly finding us. I mean, Challenge its marketing efforts are few and far between. And it's largely grown on just word of mouth. I mean, being around that long, and certainly helping again that range of tournaments exist has been our biggest advocate for ourselves today. But there's no shortage of competitors, right? There's no shortage of ways to organize tournaments, and I think finding our niche, which is really around this casual this casual competitive player that sort of wants to have this centralized place to host and manage tournaments, but may want other tools as extensible to that. So call it Discord, call it largely Discord, right? I mean, that's where all tournament communication usually happens. And so being a part of that and joining forces with that is something that we're working through and trying to understand. And it's a big part of Challenge today.
So out of your software and out of the things you have set up, maybe even communities, it being new, have you seen like growth of other organizations who are using your software, if that question makes sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think what we're getting at is, do we see communities grow on Challenge because of our support? And I would say yes and no. We're not taking ownership of that hard work. We just like being the destination, and we're not convincing anyone to come use us, right? We want to be a utility that's used when it's needed, and reliable when it's needed. And I think that's kind of to your point of, yes, we've very much seen these grow. I mentioned that Reddit Street Fighter group. We hosted Evo Japan back in 2019, and we're on site there and watched that group explode. And now it's a community on Challenge. We've seen these groups form and sort of now rally around this central hub, and that's what we choose to be. But yet we're not forcing people to come back. We're not annoying anyone, right? This is a utility, it's a tool, and that extensibility is what we're excited about. And that goes through to those that don't lean on Challenge heavily as a platform, but lean on our API and the software behind it to build on top of us. And that's where things become really exciting, where, whether they're students, whether they're, leagues of their own that say, hey, bracket logic sounds pretty easy on the surface, but when you get into it and it's a weird number like a 7-person bracket or a 77-person bracket, double elimination, that bleeds into a single elimination grand final, that gets complicated fast. So our tools are there to help manage that for them.
Yeah. So I'll make this next question kind of like a two-parter or like a double question. What do you see as the future, the next 3 to 5 years, $1 million question, of esports and this esports competition industry being, and then on top of that, Challenge's next 3 to 5 years, what do you think that looks like?
Yeah, for sure. I think in 3 to 5 years, I guess if I put a stake in the sand, I think I see esports continuing to grow right in popularity, right, continuing to maintain its hockey stick curve of being more recognized and acceptable by all audiences, right? Hey, I'm now flipping through ESPN and seeing world championships, and that's something that's going to continue to happen. Being in the Olympics someday, I think these things are inevitable, right? That's kind of the growth. I also think you'll see more localization around esports. I think we need hometown fans of these teams, right? We need collegiate fans. We need people to understand it better. And with so many game titles, it becomes a challenge. And I don't have an answer, but I think it's going to be exciting to see those hometown sort of stories evolve, and that those relationships between your average fan and your competitive player really start to manifest at a local level. And then the second part of that, you said challenge, where are we going, or how are we helping with some of that? And I think for us, I'm going to go back to it. It's that extensibility. We know that as more, as leagues pop up, as teams play, unique needs are out there and we don't know them all. And so building a platform that's flexible and allows people to build on top of us or utilize our system in their own, with their own customization and personalization is really where we see the future.
So maybe this is the same answer as something you gave earlier when I asked about advice, but for students or anybody watching like at the moment, what would be your advice for people who are interested to get into this field, esports, and I guess competition software, that kind of thing?
Yeah. And so I think anywhere, right, you find opportunities to test it, right? There's no shortage of companies out there that are, would actively be excited to have a small internship or a project-based internship or hey, what do you need help with? I'd love to just plug myself in for a little bit just to get a taste of what this project might be. And while that seems, unusual, it's the perfect time for it, especially in this COVID era, right? Where reach out to a brand, a company, us, whomever, and say something like, hey, I'm interested to learn more. Do you have a project I could take on for you? And I'm not saying turn this into a cash cow for yourself, but I think it's a chance to learn the industry from a different perspective and truly see if it's right for you, and also build that resume towards what you might want to do next, because they're scarce, right? It's scarce. It's not easy to find someone with any esports experience or gaming experience overall. So that would certainly be helpful.
Yeah. So you have given us an extremely interesting perspective on this whole thing. Who do you think, because we ask everyone, who do you think are like two other organizations that we should reach out to that could give us a unique perspective like the one that you have just provided?
Yeah, I think on the competition management level, there's some great organizers out there that I'd love to make some connections with. That I think would certainly provide that additional layer, right? This one more layer of how does the inner workings of this whole thing manage? How does a broadcast take off from start to finish? And I think there's two people on the Logitech team that I can think of right now. To name them, Joseph Bentley of Beyond Entertainment would be a fantastic interview. They've been managing everything from the Gears of War Pro, 2v2 league online to the Logitech G Challenge, which is a global sim racing tournament. So that certainly would be very powerful to get him on board. Yeah. And then second to that, I'll think about it, but I think maybe even perspective outside of the industry on actually, I've got a couple others too, on even like youth level, right? How are we activating youth organizers and what does that look like and the challenges they face? So I can get back to you on that one, Doug.
Absolutely. We will wait with bated breath, I suppose. So that's the last question I got for you. This has been fantastic. Like I said, an extremely unique perspective, and we truly appreciate that. Thank you for answering all of our questions, and thank you for your time. Stay safe, stay well, go Dogs.
That's right. Go Dogs. Thanks, Doug.
Of course.